Hello, everybody. Today we're going to read Chapter 4 called The Cygnets. And here is the picture again. And you remember yesterday we ended with a question. What is a cygnet? Well, keep listening. You're about to find out. During the night, the swan thought she heard a piping sound from the eggs. And in the hour just before dawn, she was sure she felt a slight movement under her breast, as though a tiny body were wiggling there. Perhaps the eggs were hatching. Eggs, of course, can't wiggle, so the swan decided she must have something under her that wasn't an egg. She sat perfectly still, listening and waiting. The cob floated nearby, keeping watch. A little swan enclosed in an egg has a hard time getting out. It never would get out if nature had not provided it with two things: a powerful neck muscle and a small dagger tooth on the tip of its bill. The tooth is sharp, and the baby swan uses it to pick a hole through the tough shell of the egg. Once the hole is made, the rest is easy. The cygnet can breathe now, and it just keeps wiggling and wiggling until it wiggles free. The cob was expecting to become a father at any minute now. The idea of fatherhood made him feel poetical and proud. He began to talk to his mate. "Here I glide, swan-like," he said, "while earth is bathed in wonder and beauty. Now slowly the light of the day comes into our sky. A mist hangs low over the pond. The mist rises slowly like steam from a kettle, while I glide, swan-like. While eggs hatch, while young swans come into existence, I glide and I glide. The light strengthens, the air becomes warmer. Gradually the mist disappears. I glide and I glide, swan-like. Birds sing their early song. Frogs that have croaked in the night stop croaking and are silent. Still I glide ceaselessly like a swan." "Of course you glide like a swan," said his mate. "How else would you glide? You couldn't glide like a moose, could you?" "Well, no, that is quite true. Thank you, my dear, for correcting me." The cob felt taken aback by his mate's common-sense remark. He enjoyed speaking in fancy phrases and graceful language. He liked to think of himself as gliding swan-like. He decided he would do more gliding and less talking. All morning long, the swan heard the pipping of the shells. Every once in a while, she felt something wiggle beneath her in the nest. It was an odd sensation. The eggs had been quiet for so many, many days, 35 in all, and now, at last, they were stirring with life. She knew that the proper thing to do was to sit still. Late in the afternoon, the swan was rewarded for her patience. She gazed down, and there, pushing her feathers aside, came a tiny head, the first baby. The first cygnet! It was soft and downy. Unlike its parents, it was gray. Its feet and its legs were the color of mustard, and its eyes were bright. On unsteady legs, it pushed its way up until it stood beside its mother, looking around at the world to see it and seeing it for the first time. Its mother spoke softly to it and was glad to hear her voice. It was glad to breathe the air after being cooped up so long inside an egg. The cob, who had been watching intently all day, saw the little head appear, his heart leapt with joy. "A signet!" he cried. "A signet at last! I am a father, with all the pleasant duties and awesome responsibilities of parenthood. Oh, blessed little son of mine, how good is it to see your face peering through the protecting feathers of your mother's breast, under these fair skies, with the pond so quiet and peaceful in the long afternoon." "What makes you think it's a son?" inquired his mate. "For all you know, it could be a daughter. Anyway, it's a signet. It is healthy and it is alive. And I can feel the others under me too. Perhaps we'll get a good hatch. We may even get all 5. We'll know by tomorrow." "I have every confidence that we will," said the cob. Hang on, I'm going to show you the picture. Sorry. There is the cob and is the swan. A female swan, I believe, is called a pen. So the cob and the pen. The next morning, very early, Sam Beaver crawled out of his bunk while his father was still asleep. Sam dressed and lit a fire in the stove. He fried a few strips of bacon. He toasted 2 slices of bread, poured a glass of milk, and sat down and ate breakfast. When he was through, he found a pencil and paper and wrote a note. "I have gone for a walk. I will be back for lunch." Sam left the note where his father would find it, and then he took his binoculars and his compass and his belt, and he set out through the woods and over the swamp to the pond where the swans lived. He approached the pond cautiously, his binoculars slung over his shoulder. It was still only a little after 7 o'clock in the morning. The sun was pale and the air was chill. The morning smelled delicious. When he reached his log, Sam sat down and adjusted the binoculars. Seen through the binoculars, the nesting swan appeared to be only a few feet away. She was sitting very close, not moving. The cob was nearby. Both birds were listening and waiting. Both birds saw Sam, but they didn't mind his being there. In fact, they rather liked it. They were surprised, however, by his binoculars. "That boy seems to have very big eyes today," whispered the cob. "His eyes are enormous." "I think those big eyes are actually a pair of binoculars," said the swan. "I'm not sure, but I think that when a person looks through binoculars, everything appears closer and bigger." "Will the boy's glasses make me appear even larger than I am?" asked the cob hopefully. "I think so," said his mate. "Oh, well, I like that," said the cob. "I like that very much. Perhaps the boy's glasses will make me appear not only larger than I am, but even more graceful than I am. Do you think so?" "It is possible," said his mate, "but not likely. You'd better not get too graceful. It might get to your head. You are quite a vain bird." "All swans are vain," replied the cob. "It is right for a swan to feel proud and graceful. That's what swans are for." Sam could not make out what the swans were saying. He merely understood they were having a conversation, and just hearing them talk stirred his blood. It satisfied him to be keeping company with these 2 great birds in the wilderness. He was perfectly happy. In the mid-morning, when the sun had gained in the sky, Sam lifted his binoculars again and focused them on the nest. At last he saw what he came for, a tiny head thrusting through its mother's feathers, the head of a baby trumpeter. The youngster scrambled up onto the edge of the nest. Sam could see its gray head and neck, its body covered with soft down, its yellow legs and feet with their webs for swimming. Soon another cygnet appeared, then another. Then the first one worked its way down into its mother's feathers again for warmth. Then one tried to climb up its mother's back, but her feathers were slippery and it slid off and nestled itself neatly beside her. The swan just sat and sat, enjoying her babies, watching them gain the use of their legs. An hour went by. One of the cygnets, more daring than the others, left the nest and teetered around the shore of the little island. When this happened, the mother swan stood up. She decided it was time that she come to lead her children into the water. "Come on," she said, "and stay together. Note carefully what I do, and then you do the same. Swimming is easy." 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Sam counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 cygnets, just as sure as I'm alive. The cob, as he saw his children approaching the water, felt that he should act like a father and began making a speech. Get ready for this. "Welcome to the pond and the swamp adjacent," he said. "Welcome to the world that contains this lonely pond, this splendid marsh, unspoiled and wild. Come to sunlight and shadow, wind and weather. Welcome to water. The water is a swan's particular element, as you will soon discover. Swimming is no problem for a swan. Welcome to danger which you must guard against. The vile fox, the stealthy tread and sharp teeth, the offensive otter who swims up under you and might grab you by the legs, the stinking skunk who hunts by night and blends in with the shadows, the coyote who hunts and howls and is bigger than a fox. Beware of lead pellets that lie on the bottom of ponds, left there from the guns of hunters. Don't eat them, they are poison. Be vigilant, be strong, be brave, be graceful, and always, always follow me. I will go first, and then you will come along in single file, and your devoted mother will bring up the rear. Enter the water quietly and confidently." The mother swan was glad the speech was over. She stepped into the water and called her little ones. The cygnets gazed for a second at the water, and then tottered forward, gave a little jump, and were afloat. The water felt good. Swimming was simple, nothing to it. The water was good to drink. Each baby dipped up a mouthful. Their happy father arched his long, graceful neck over and around them protectively. And then he set off very slowly with the cygnets following along in single file. Their mother brought up the rear. As we all know, the person at the end of the line has a very important job, making sure everyone stays in front of them. "What a sight," Sam said to himself. "What a terrific sight. 7 trumpeter swans, all in a line, 5 of them just out of the egg. This is my lucky day." He hardly noticed how stiff his legs had become from sitting for so long on a log. Like all new parents, the cob wanted to show off his children to somebody. So he led the cygnets to where Sam was. And hang on, before I turn the page, I'm going to show you this picture. There's the cygnets about to jump into the pond. Are they little? They all stepped out of the water and in front of the boy. All but the pen. She stayed behind. Now there's Sam. And there's the swan. "Oh-ho!" said the cob. "Hello," said Sam, who hadn't expected anything like this, and he hardly dared to breathe. The first cygnet looked at Sam and said, "Beep." The second cygnet looked at Sam and said, "Beep." The third cygnet greeted Sam the same way. So did the fourth. The fifth cygnet was different. He opened his mouth, but he didn't say anything. So he made an effort to say beep, but nothing came out. Instead, he stuck his little neck out and took hold of one of Sam's shoelaces and gave it a pull. I hope you can see that tiny, there's Sam's shoe, and there's that little cygnet right there pulling on the shoelace. He tugged at the lace for a moment, and it came untied. Then he let it go. It was like a little greeting. The cob now looked worried. He ran his long white neck between the cygnets and Sam and guided the babies back into the water and over to their mother. "Follow me," said the swan, and she led them off, full of grace and bursting with pride. When the mother thought her young ones had had enough swimming and might start getting chilly, she stepped out onto the sandy shore and squatted down and called to them. They quickly followed her out of the pond and burrowed down under her feathers to get warm. In a moment, there wasn't a cygnet in sight. At noon, Sam got up and walked back to camp. His mind was full of what he had seen. Next day, he and his father heard Shorty's motor in the sky and saw the airplane approaching. Do you remember who Shorty is? In the very first chapter, we learned Shorty is the name of the pilot of the airplane. They grabbed their duffel bags. "Goodbye, camp. We'll see you in the fall," said Mr. Beaver, and he shut the door and gave it a pat. He and Sam climbed into the plane and were soon aloft on their way home to Montana. Mr. Beaver did not know that his son had seen a trumpeter swan bring off her young ones. Sam kept that matter to himself. "If I live to be 100 years old," Sam thought, "I will never forget what it feels like to have my shoelace pulled by a baby swan." Sam and his father were late arriving home at the ranch. But, late as it was, Sam got out his diary. Before he turned in for the night, he wrote. This is what he wrote. "There are 5 cygnets. They are sort of a dirty brownish gray color, but very cute. Their legs are yellow like mustard. The cob led them right up to me. I wasn't expecting this, but I kept very still. 4 of the babies said beep. The 5th one tried, but it couldn't. Instead, it took hold of my shoelace as though it were a worm and gave it a tug and untied it. I wonder what I'm going to be when I grow up." Sam switched off the light, pulled the sheet up over his head, and fell asleep, wondering what he was going to be when he grew up. And here is a picture of Sam laying in his bed at home. And there's a little animal there on the rug next to his bed. Not sure I know what that is. I'll put it a little closer. Maybe you can tell me. Anyway, it's a kind of pet. That's the end of that. Chapter 4. Chapter 5, which we'll hear tomorrow, is called Lewis. I look forward to reading to you again tomorrow. Have a great day.